Hey everyone, and welcome back to Across the Neurodivide, the podcast where myself and Tigga Pritchard, hey Tigga.
Hello.
The podcast where myself and Tigga, we talk about the things that matter across the world of neurodivergence and basically the world in general, and the different perspectives we bring as both a neurotypical in myself and a neurodivergent in Tigga. Before we go on any further, I want you to go down now, hit like, hit subscribe, ring the bell, and you'll always know when there's new episodes coming up and other content on the channel. Tigga, my man, how are you this week?
I'm fine, thank you. I will be open, as I have with you, and say I have a kidney problem, which some individuals may, but kidney stone. So if I look a bit pained at times, it's because I'm not firing on all cylinders, as I said early on. But it will go, it will pass. That's the frightening bit. Trigger warning there. I'm eager as ever to get in a conversation. And to viewers out there, I'm trying a new camera and a new setup, basically because your setup looks so cool. You forced me. You've made me get my act together and work out how to use this new camera.
I love the setup. It looks so smart.
It's a more relaxed setup for me, shall we say. So I'm trying that and seeing seeing how it works. And again, to everybody, hit that like, hit that subscribe, and thank you so much for joining us again.
So, Tigga, what's on your mind this week? You were talking to me earlier about movies, basically, and I thought that was a really cool, interesting topic. What was that on for you?
This is another bugbear of mine. A lot of autistic individuals, not neurodivergent individuals, we are very passionate about, I think, right and wrong. And I'm at the point now where if I see something I don't agree with, I'm writing emails to MPs, to organisations, usually at 2 or 3 in the morning when I can't sleep. Like, that's not right, and I'll write away a little email and stuff. One of the areas I'm extremely passionate about, as I would be, is about the representation of my neurokin in the media. So one aspect is papers, and I've got to put it in. I was reading an article in The Guardian the other day, one article that wasn't that bad, about how being, neurodivergent enhanced a professional in the workplace, which I think, of course, didn't you know that? Which was a lush article. Another article where, again, the language is old and out of date, and it's with autism and suffering and all this kind of stuff. And then I go to the media in terms of television shows, films, and that's where we were conversing the other night really quickly. I am not a film or media critic. God, I am a film or media buff. There's a thing I shared the other day where, I don't know if you saw it, but it was about somebody trying to watch a movie and then me going, yeah, and he starred in this and he starred in that. Do you know I did that special effect? And in this movie they did this, and this is what happened behind the scenes. That's me watching a movie, usually, because I'll be Googling it as I'm watching it and I get told to shut up, which you can imagine happens a lot. So there's yet another program, I know. There's yet another program come out as we see it. And forgive me, I forget which provider it's on. But it's a program with awesomely autistic actors, and it's about their journey. And I thought, oh, this is cool. It's got individuals who are autistic actually in it. Thank God, because so much stuff hasn't. The representation of what it means to be autistic in the media historically is of a white Western male who is highly intelligent or savant or in a professional job, and the list goes on. And then of late, you've got the European cinema and TV, where you've got detectives and other professionals coming along as well. But you've still got a particular box. You don't see that many women represented, or individuals of colour, and so on and so forth. So this new show, I'm looking for something to watch with my partner to ease her more gently into other autistic individuals, not just to learn about me, but to learn about my neurokin. So I thought, okay, let's watch this. And I watched this program, which I had so much higher hopes for. I may have to dip in a bit more. I stopped at one episode because all I saw again was that ableist, neurotypical representation of what it means to be autistic. You had a guy who was clearly highly intelligent in his job, but they portrayed his social skills as being absolutely terrible, to the point where he got fired from a job when in fact what he'd done for the company was amazing. And then in supported living, so that he was a man who could write amazing computer programs, X, Y, and Z. And there are individuals like that out there, but they then portrayed him as not an independent individual like me, who lives, talks, breathes, etc. But then he had to have a carer, supportive work come around to sort out his life for him and to other individuals. Like most things I see, there are elements that worked, but there are a lot of elements that just reinforced again that seem a million miles away from my autistic experience and from so many people's autistic experiences that I know. Have you watched anything yourself?
I've watched quite a few things. I mean, I did a review on my channel about Sia's music. Just an appalling representation of autism, but not only that, offensive, ableist, dangerous, because there were things like the restraint scene in there, which was a dangerous restraint used in a situation that didn't require restraint at all. And then when it was delved into, people were saying, why isn't an autistic person playing the character? Why have you gone for a neurotypical? And the answer that Sia gave was, well, it's because it was too much stress for her and she couldn't cope with it. And it's like, well, hang on, that really doesn't add up.
That again is ableist, there's no adaptation. She actually did an apology, I think, several months ago, which was even worse. So she actually did, because the autistic community globally, which I'm part of, went for her with a please listen to us, please let us educate you. To everybody else out there, please do not watch this video. Several people wrote it was shortlisted for an award, and thousands of autistic individuals globally wrote to the award company, I think, if memory serves, and went, hey, hang on a minute, if that happened, I might be a bit wrong there. But the feedback from the autistic community globally was huge. And again, just no understanding of what she's done wrong, which is really sad.
No, I mentioned this on my review, and I think it's something that stands to a closer examination again. You compare Sia's reaction to the autistic community with music to Anne Hathaway with The Witches. So there was a big response from the limb different community to the fact that the evil witches were represented by having limb difference in the hands. And at first they were annoyed that she wasn't responding. When she did respond, it was a masterclass on how to handle a situation like this, because what she did was acknowledge, I completely understand where you're coming from. I hadn't considered this, and I feel wrong for not having considered this. It would never be my intention to insult your community in this way. And she went about it and said, and moving forward, I will be taking this on board and making sure that these mistakes aren't made again. And I thought that was just a fantastic response, because without being too defensive, she acknowledged, well, I hadn't considered that, and thank you for letting me know. I am hearing you. Here's what I've understood, and here's what I'm going to do about it going forward. And it was like, it was a masterclass.
That's what you want. Just you've got this thing again where people's perceptions of what it means to be neurodivergent, what it means to be autistic, are still based upon their understanding, maybe from training, which is something we've got to talk about on one of these. It's out of date, and then there's media reinforcement, and you just want someone to go, okay, I'll listen. Or I got it wrong, let's do it better next time. There are some shows out there, one of them was Atypical, where they actually listen to the feedback from the autistic community, and they got autistic actors involved, and they got more autistic individuals upon writing the scripts and so on, to make it more realistic, more authentic. They listened. I've watched some of The Good Doctor and like it, but it's still a white guy who's a professional who all of a sudden saves people's lives.
I got frustrated with The Doctor. So watching that, I found it so difficult, because it's like there was elements there that I thought they were handling well. But there were other elements that were just so badly handled, in my opinion. And like you say, again, it's not just that he's some guy living his life. He's got this amazing, he's gifted, and they focus on the gift. And yes, that makes it difficult for him in other situations, and his emotional quotient is low compared to his, and all this kind of stuff. But they were all very, and I use the word carefully, typical autistic portrayals.
And that's why, there's an Instagram post I did centuries ago, I think it's on the website, and it is, but you don't look autistic. So many individuals, so many professionals think of somebody, or, you regular individual on the street, because of the information they're getting, you've got no empathy, you're rude, you don't have eye contact, you don't understand humour, you don't smile, you don't have friends, and the list goes on. And if you're not a doctor, or you don't live in, supported accommodation, you're not a detective, then you can't be autistic. And if you're not a white bloke, you can't be autistic, yeah? And it goes on and on and on. And it is so many often, you know, so many of my neurokin get, you can't be autistic. You give eye contact. You get jokes. And you think, oh, really? And it just, and that's why I wish TV shows could take that leap of faith, work more and more and more with neurodivergent individuals, and really show, you know, the 21st century, what it is to be awesomely autistic.
Well, it's like we say, we've talked about in this show before about the point that, you know, ableism is sort of so far down the rung of isms, and it doesn't get considered nearly enough. What you've got in there is this, where we talk about all the different aspects of acceptance, and, you know, we're so good with LGBTQ plus now, and you know, obviously not perfect, things have a long way to go, but compared to where we were even 10 years ago, things have really come forward. We're so much better with, you know, cultural representation on TV and stuff like that. But like you say, when it comes to autistic people in particular, for some reason, they get very much put in this box of white male. And you could argue that Sears Music was breaking that because it was a female. Yeah, but then doing so much damage in every other way in the process. You go back to the old classic trope of Dustin Hoffman in Rain Man, and what that representation was like of somebody who was actually not even based on an autistic person, but was labelled autistic for the sake of the movie.
Well, I did a lot of research about this. At the time, I was obviously doing an awful well. As my first jobs was then. He did spend a year, I think, with the NES in England and an autism society in America, and based a lot of it upon an actual individual who was an autistic savant. So there's another label there that comes into the mix, yeah? And as it's time, I mean, most things, we've said it before, we as a society are on a journey, and it has its place and its time, which was then. It broke the mold at the time. He put a lot of effort into making sure his portrayal was realistic. But all the information he was getting then was decades ago. And so much has changed since then with the understanding of what it means to be autistic. I will once say, one portrayal that I know is awesome is The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Night Time, the stage show. Okay. And I haven't seen it, which hurts. I was in Nepal when it came to Plymouth. I was like, no! But so many people I know, autistic individuals that have seen it, have gone, it was good. And I do know of late, they portrayed an awesome autistic individual to play the lead part, and the way they show the sensory world on the stage and everything. I've never seen it myself, I've heard from quite a few individuals that is brilliant. And awesome. that'd be lovely to see that made in a movie. And the other one is The Reason Why I Jump, which was a documentary made from the books. Or the book, There's two of them out there, translated from Japanese. That documentary I was lucky to see online as a guest when it came out for Christmas. It's winning loads of awards, and it's really cool because it not only shows the world of a wide range of gorgeous autistic individuals, it also shows individuals who are verbal and non-verbal, and that's something else that's missed out of the mix. Is that, you know, I readily say to people, when I get highly stressed and anxious, I don't speak. I know that's hard to believe, but I actually choose not to speak, I know. But when I'm highly stressed, I will communicate with whistles, and I won't communicate with the spoken word because I can't. And it's just a stress reaction for me. So there are some interesting things out there, and I just want to see more because it just adds to that.
Do you have a favourite representation you have seen that you think is a positive one?
I haven't seen The Curious Incident, the book I loved all those years ago when it came out. But I said, I'm itching to see it because so many people telling me it's lush. There are aspects of things. I mean, there are aspects of the accountant, if you've seen that. Ben Affleck, where there were aspects there where my partner and I were sitting together on the sofa watching it, and she looked at me and she went, oh yeah, that's you. Yeah, I can see that bit. But then he was portrayed as a highly intelligent accountant who was also trained to kill. And those aren't really the reinforcers you want. So there are elements, in so many things I see, there are elements of it. The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, the original version, which is quite graphic, so there should be a little bit of a trigger warning there. Not the remake version, the original version, which I think is in Swedish. That's her portrayal is very much so of a neurodivergent individual. There's a few other things out there, most of them just snippets. There's not one thing at this moment in time where I jump up and down for joy. There was a local group of actors down here where I live in the southwest who were at university, and they produced a play about masking as teenagers, maybe not teenagers, because they were at university doing the degree, and that was good. I enjoyed that because they were all I think the majority of the cast were Neurodivergent. Obviously, the main lead was, and it was like, this is my life. There's an inner me and there's the outer me, and the outer me is masking because that's what I have to do to get by in society. But this is what actually goes on in my head, and it went through the range of anxieties and what do I say and what do I do, and I've got distracted easy and so on and so forth. But I think at the moment I'm exploring. There isn't something to me that fits the bill, and I'm very wary of recommending anything because there's nothing yet that's perfect. There's some interesting Disney stuff out there. There are pockets of originality here and there, and there's another American TV show. I think they've got a gentleman of color, but then nobody. It's like Sheldon in The Big Bang Theory. Nobody says he's autistic for, I believe, for the whole of the run. The word autism and neurodivergent is not mentioned. It's not mentioned at all. But people look at him and go, okay, he's autistic, because of that stereotypical reinforcement of what people are aware of. But the character itself is not, I believe, not anywhere. But there was one episode there where my daughter made me watch it, awesome daughter, and we watched it and she went, do you get it? And I was sitting there, and it's all about him sitting on a particular place on the sofa. And I have my chair, and I like sitting on particular places on the sofa. And the best one I can give is I went to a dear friend's house where his children are godchildren, and they'd rearranged the house, if memory serves. And I walked in and I went, oh, the sofa is normally there. And he went, yeah, I know, I've had a bit of a change around. And I went, right, but that's where I normally sit. And I sit there because I can see the window, I can see the telly, I can hear the kids up there. That's where I normally sit. And I think he said to me, it's my house, not yours. Yeah, which is true. And I was really kind of like, but that's where I sit. And I've got to sit as well, even my awesome partner who comes here. I mean, she brought me this chair, but it's my chair. So sometimes she'll sit in it and I'll stand there. And she'll look at me and she'll go, you're kidding. And I'll go, well, it's my chair. And she then gets up and goes on the sofa. But I will say, I'm like on tangents, the only person that can, or individual that can sit in the chair, and I don't get them to move, is Mrs. Pebbles. It happens to be Mrs. Pebbles' favourite chair when she visits, and when she sits in it, I begrudgingly sit on the sofa and give her a few hard stares, but I can't move her. But no, there's nothing yet that fits the bill of an authentic experience on TV.
Have you watched the series Community?
No, I haven't.
Okay, it's one I'm going to highly recommend. It's Dan Harmon who created it, and he's the guy who's behind Rick and Morty as well.
Yeah.
And one of the key characters, and in fact, I would say the character that binds, the reason the show works is because of this one character called Abed, and is referred to in the first episode as having Asperger's.
That's the one I thought of that I haven't seen yet, but that has been recommended to me, I must confess. I've just got an image on my phone that has been recommended to me.
It is absolutely brilliant because he is... The humour in the show comes in often because of his perspective of the world around him, the way he is. And they don't shy away from him being autistic, but it really plays nicely. And it's one of the few characters that the autistic community in general have really got behind. There's so much support for it. And in fact, through creating Dan Harmon himself realised he was autistic as well. And
I didn't remember the name, but I must confess it has been recommended to me in the past. One of those things that is one of my mechanisms of life is I love watching Netflix. I love watching movies. I love watching shows. I find it very difficult to start something new. What I often watch is stuff I've watched before, and I will have a look at that. I've got to find something, and that might work for Claire. Which would be Lush. Yeah, and that's what I'm after. I'm after something to bridge that neurodivide, to sit down with my partner and for her to have another insight, somebody else's voice, should we say? It's
one of those shows that is just so well written, and the comedy is just so on point, and it's wonderfully bizarre in many episodes. And in fact, one of my favourite episodes, it appears that Abed's not in it at all. It's like this, so I can take a break for a week. It's very meta humour, very self-referential. But actually what you realise is that in the background, he's almost every scene, and there's an entire story that is just his playing out in the background scenes, very Woody Allen sort of style
I do like
thing.
That,
It's in the background playing out, but you don't realise it until you go back and realise every scene is in the background and this other story is developing through it. It's just so fantastically written. I can't recommend it enough. It's one of my favourite shows of the time.
As I say, it has been for a while now been recommended. I just got to take that leap and watch stuff, because the other thing I have is I have to watch it from the beginning. There's no way, hey, watch this episode here. I'm like, my partner's tried that, and I've gone, no. She goes, I'm 3 episodes in, and I'll go, can I watch them myself separately and catch up? And she'll go, oh, I thought we could watch this tonight. And I'm like, no, because I need to start episode 1. Sorry. And I have to.
Yeah.
But also there's that bit about it's something new. And when, as often when anxiety levels are high, unless it's something I've got to see, like the Book of Boba Fett or the latest Spider-Man, then there's a huge amount of interest in it, something I can't wait to see. Something new like this, it's like I have to get used to the thought of seeing it. I'll research it. I've researched it already before we spoke, I must confess. And so there's almost stages in getting to see it. Does that make sense? That's autistic Tigger there. So there's almost like a drip feed, and then I'm ready to watch it. But a lot of people have told me the same that you've just done. So that's definitely going up higher in my, you really should watch this Tigger.
You won't regret it. And they're all available all seasons. So it's one of those things. I mean, it's interesting. We talked about, as part of this, we were talking there about the different cultural backgrounds and the fact that autism is often reflected, or neurodivergence is often reflected really badly, in the sense that it's always white male and very rarely breaks from that. And I was being interviewed on the Vocal Minds podcast with Sophie V a couple of weeks ago, and it's gone on YouTube now. I'll put the link in the description. You can go and check that out if you want. She was saying that she in the past has suffered from anxiety, and she was very concerned about how she should reflect that, because she couldn't really talk about it with the family because she's of mixed race. The background that she has is that a lot of it is, well, you're possessed, and so it's another layer of challenge that hits people. And it came up just as this, in the last couple of days, it just got highlighted to me on Twitter. There's an article, and it talks about the far-right Christian evangelical pastor by the name of Greg Locke has left people outraged after claiming that children with autism are possessed by demons. And I took particular interest in this because I don't speak about it a lot. I'm religious. I have my beliefs. I don't go about forcing them down everyone's throats kind of thing. It's, no one wants to hear that. But I find this particularly hard because I know that there's this thought process that exists, and it generally exists, like I said, we find it surprising when we find out this stuff is taking place in the Western world, where we're supposedly so much more enlightened. I mean, what's your take on that? When you hear that, what's your response?
I mean, would you believe in my past I was a lay preacher? I think we haven't spoken about this one.
No,
it's very important to me. That's another one maybe. So, what's my take on it is it all boils down again, and we've got to do a podcast on this one as well. It all boils down again to what people are being taught in any culture about what it means to be autistic, to be neurodivergent. You have different understandings of that across the globe. For example, in our country, some academies still, many schools, many professionals equate that myth that eye contact is very important for everybody. And whether you're autistic or not, you've got to learn that skill of eye contact. So you don't look at me, you're not listening to me. Whereas in some other cultures, so in this country, if you're not looking at somebody in the eye when they're talking to you, let's say a teacher-pupil interaction, then that's not on. In other countries, eye contact isn't good at all for a variety of reasons. Therefore, if a student isn't looking at a teacher, it's not a problem. And that's an interesting interpretation of what it means to be autistic. You've got the diagnostic criteria, the DSM, the ICD, and so on that dictate across the globe as to how people are diagnosed. Not too sure I love that term. But you've got different cultures' interpretations of what it means to be autistic. And again, with education, etc., you have an awful lot of people across the globe still, even in the Western world, are training and helping and supporting individuals all over the planet, and they're selling that medical model of autism, and that reinforces to so many individuals that something's wrong with somebody, it needs to be fixed, or they need to be stopped at birth, and all this horrendous stuff. We mentioned in our pre-chat that I'd worked in Nepal many moons ago, one of the best things I've ever done. I was lucky enough to spend my 50th birthday I know you can't believe it. I was lucky enough to spend my 50th birthday looking at the Himalayas as my morning backdrop. That was something I'll never forget. It was lush beyond belief. That somebody had just painted it. It just looked like a matte painting from a movie. Yeah? But there, the understanding of what it meant to be different, in their words, to be also autistic, was very different to what I'm used to. I found it as quite a shock. But I also found people that were willing to learn, that were open to ideas and thoughts. That's how my Facebook page, the Autistic Coffee Shop, was set up. It was set up initially all those years ago to make sure that the people I worked with in the pool could get up-to-date information about what it means to be autistic. And that's where it all started. And so in many cultures, it boils down to a historical leakage of what it means to be autistic, neurodivergent. A lot of that will be cultural based in terms of there's something wrong with you, and then, there's an awful lot of belief in certain cultures about demonic possession and so on and so forth. And to a certain degree, I'm going to say again, some aspects of the Western world, America, other areas, give huge amounts of input abroad. And because of organizations like Autism Speaks and so on, they reinforce that narrative, which then, dictates that people should be cured and so on and so forth. Not what I adhere to at all. And I think that it's all, we need to do a separate podcast, as I keep saying. It's all to do with that education that's there. I mean, I relearn all the time, as you do. We've got to. But I mean, where I am as an autistic individual is not where I was 10 years ago, not where I was 20 years ago, 35 years ago when I first started the journey as a professional. And I'm continually reevaluating and rethinking. And I just think that, again, certain cultures' initial historical misconceptions, what it means to be different in any way, physical, intellectual, etc., are sometimes still reinforced by some global communities, organizations, like Autism Speaks, and some of them going in, believing they're doing the best, doing the white man support bit, but that's what it looks like sometimes, and they're just rehashing and almost adding fuel to the fire of, yes, these children are different and this is what you should be doing. I was going to do a study with a friend of mine, Sam. We're going to look at this. We're going to look at how different cultures view what it means to be autistic, because we have a very westernized slant, which is obviously reinforced by the DSM and the ICD, and also the misinterpretations of those at times as well. But we still have a very Western slant. And as I said, the thing we were talking about was eye contact. In some cultures, it's not a problem. In this culture, it appears to be a real problem. The misconceptions, if you can't be autistic because you're looking at me, and at the same time, you've got to look at me because otherwise you're not listening to me when I'm telling you something. So it's a complex one. It's all about education again.
This one took me because it's somebody who, I mean, this is within Western culture, and as I say, I end up being sort of torn of, okay, this guy has beliefs not dissimilar to my own, so where do I come from this? And having seen, and knowing who my daughter is, I think what my issue is that it's such a public statement to make in the first place that labels people, and without an understanding. And it's like, well, he's quite happy to write everybody who's autistic off as being demon possessed. Now that really strikes to the heart. It goes against what I believe. Does that make sense? It actually goes against.
From a religious viewpoint, I worked with an Adventist church, and they have got in touch with me quite a few times over the years. They've been supportive, understanding, rethinking their viewpoints, and we're doing a lot of good work. So I know an awful lot of individuals who, again, it's that willingness to, I mean, okay, we could go off on a Christian doctrine one day. There are many interpretations of the Bible, from, was it the James to Good News to all the others, And when you interpret from an original language, there's always going to be an issue in terms of what's said, and then you have yet another person who's reading it, interpreting themselves from their historical narrative and their bias, and sometimes unconscious bias. And this is another thing I'm very interested in. I've spoken to a company down here. I'm very interested in a research project on the unconscious bias when it comes to when somebody mentions the term autistic or ADHD or PDA or whatever, the unconscious bias then that comes across from a neurotypical individual as to then how they adjust their interactions and thought processes with regard to that individual. And they are kind of like, unconscious without even thinking about it. So, it's pockets of individuals within any religious space who are open to redesigning their thought, rethinking, to open to re-educating themselves and bringing themselves into the 21st century, and those that may hold on to their particular narrative based upon their interpretation of what's written in whichever version of the Bible maybe they choose to adhere to. And that in itself is, you're not educated enough, open your mind up. It's great if you do. Your misconceptions are slightly out of date. But again, this individual believes with a passion that what they're saying is the truth. And this is where, please open your mind up. Let's have a dialogue. Let's talk to you. Let's chat across this neurodivide. And that I'd like to let you know more
about. Yeah, exactly. And I mean, we'd love to hear in the comments if you guys have read this and you've got opinions. We'd like to hear about it, but also to reach out to the gentleman behind it. If you want to come and talk about it, we'd love to talk to you, and actually in a really calm, respectful manner. So please do get in touch if you see this. I'm going to move this on. We had a question come up on our last episode from one of our viewers, and this is from Emma Wheeler. And Emma has written, Merry Winter to you both. Please could you cover something on relationships to objects and possessions, as in favourite items, collections, hoarding, not being able to give or throw things away, or giving or throwing things away too quickly, holding on to things but not being able to use them, etc. And I thought, okay, this is definitely one that I've got to shoot to you.
So, again, we had a quick chat about this beforehand, didn't we? So I'm going to start off with, there is some thought within quantum physics and philosophy about consciousness, and about what is consciousness and who has consciousness in all its different states. Are we alone the only sentient individuals upon this planet? I won't talk about the universes, but upon this planet that have consciousness. And that's very arrogant if we think we are. You have a lot of people talk about dolphins, whales, and it goes on. And people say, oh, my dog knew exactly what I was feeling, and so on and so forth. And then if you go through the sphere of living entities, there's a lot of discussion about non-living inanimate entities and whether they can have a degree of consciousness too. So the theories out there about, is the universe itself conscious? And I've gone on a deep one now, sorry. But then it leads on to, from my perspective, I have a very personal relationship with inanimate objects. And I think I'd said to you, when I've lived somewhere and I've left the building, I have said goodbye to the building, I've hugged the building. Oh, look, I'll do this. Tigger's coffee cup, right? Came from Jersey. Love it. Absolutely love it. It's my favourite coffee cup at the moment, and every day I drink out of this. Why is it my favourite coffee cup? Everything about this is great. The weight, the smell, the shine, the amount it holds, the handle is just perfectional. So I'm developing this emotional relationship with it. If I break this, oh my God, please don't ever. If I break this, I will have to order one from Jersey straight away, because I will be bereft.
Yep.
Now, I can't give that away. I will never take that to a charity shop or put it up for sale. On occasions when I've had to sell things recently because I'm supposed to be downsizing to move in with my partner in the future. And I might have a lot of stuff because I can't get rid of it, right? So I've taken a leap of faith and gone, right, okay. I had this bowl set of, when I have Chinese food, I have Chinese food bowls and stuff. When I have Indian food, I have the silver plates and all the rest of it and so on. So to me, when you eat Chinese food, you can't use a fork and have a plate. You could have special bowls, chopsticks, all the rest of it, because that's how you eat it. Yeah. When I eat Indian food, because of my time abroad in Nepal and so on, I do sometimes still like to eat by hand, because that's how you eat it, and have specific bowls and so on and so forth. So I had to get rid of these, and I've created a folder on my phone, and I've transferred it to my computer and saved it on a hard drive, an external hard drive, images of things I've sold recently to downsize, but I still need that visual memory of them because I will miss them.
I kind of get it. In that there are things that I have, inanimate things that I have a physical, emotional reaction to. So my guitars, they're part of me. I can't get rid of them. Even so, I've got the guitar I got now. My PRS is one that I've always wanted. And getting it, and there are better ones out there, but even if I was able to get a better one, I could never get rid of that one because it means so much to me on that level of this was my dream. And but my cars as well. It's interesting that my daughter always names our cars. And again, I was watching Top Gear, actually, watching old episodes of Top Gear, and they talked about it. You develop this emotional relationship with cars, and it doesn't matter, what it is. It matters to you, and it's an inanimate thing. It's a machine. It's made of metal, plastic, and other bits and pieces. And yet, people, especially when they're people who own exotic cars and stuff, it's a proper emotional response, and you can't quantify that.
I know autistic individuals that talk about an emotive, and that's where the bit about quantum physics came in, from an emotional and almost conscious-like relationship with inanimate objects. And then, I explore this further, perhaps, and I think there are some papers written on this as well. I explore this further, perhaps, with the fact that, as people view an inanimate object, do I have to mask? Well, no, I don't. And therefore, my relationship with that inanimate object is maybe more truer, if I can use those words, than it is with some real-life human beings that I meet, because I don't have to be their expectation of me. I don't have to mask as society has forced me to do for decades and decades and decades. I can just be me. And the same goes for dogs as well, on the whole. Dogs are a real social buffer for me. They help me to do so much out there. That's why I think I've always had a dog somewhere in my life for as long as I can remember. And it's that bit about the fact that maybe there's that clarity of expression and communication with an animate object which we don't get as neurodivergent individuals, sometimes with neurotypical individuals, even for so much conversations going on. Sometimes there's just something, I can't quite put it into words, that there is about that inanimate object that there never will be. I'm going to be careful here, aren't I? That there never will be with a neurotypical person, really. I mean, I'm looking at my filing cabinet and I'm just thinking, I love that filing cabinet. I don't ever want to let it go. We've been through so much together. I've spoken to it a lot. It hides and houses. It actually holds all my clothes are in there, so to speak, yeah. And they're all in order and they're all in piles and so on and so forth. And it's just, and I just look at it and I think, I can't get rid of you because I can't. And it's like, and look at me now. No, I can't. Sorry, it's non-negotiable. I can't. It's part of me. It's intrinsically part of me. And certain things just do become. Certain things have an emotional baggage, like my daughter's giving me stuff and my partner's giving me stuff, and they are part of who I am. But look at the one we did about the Lego, the Saturn V.
Yeah.
The emotional reaction I had just to seeing that it's still there. I still haven't put it together. It's just there. I still haven't put it together because I can't. I'm not ready yet for that emotional boom of putting it together. But I tentatively started talking about this, I think last year online somewhere with some of my neuro kin. We were talking about that incredibly powerful, resonating relationship that we have with certain objects in our environment. And then, as the question said, you can't let them go. And the more, I mean, I am a hoarder. That's my partner. I can never take the camera around here because you'll just see it's packed full of stuff. And certain things I find easy to get rid of, but I've still kept pictures of them, so I can remind myself of them in years to come. It's a really interesting question, but I think out there in the autistic world, in the gorgeous autistic community, within my neurokin, there are so many individuals that have that powerful relationship with what other people will just see as a couple.
Yeah.
And it's not. It's so much more than that. It is so much more than that. The only other thing I can think of, and I might have said this on here before, I'm sorry, was my partner one day made me a coffee and she makes these almond cakes. Oh my dear God. I've only allowed them once every so often because they're the best thing ever. If you listen to this, it's been a while, Claire. I could do some more. But that's very cheeky of me. Christmas was the last time. Look, it's February now, please. And again, losing my masks in front of her, she put this plate in front of me and I looked at her and I said, can I tell you how I really feel? And she went, yeah, and I cried. And I said, can I tell you why I'm crying? And she was like, good God, it's just a cup of coffee and a plate with this on. And I told her the whole thing, how it meant to me emotionally. How the smell, the taste, the sensory issues, the excitement, looking forward to it, the way that the coffee cup was right, and all the rest of it. So I spent then maybe 15 minutes saying to her, this is why I'm crying. And yet I know so many people will go, it was a coffee and a cake, mate. No, it's not. And I know you might have more of an insight of that than others. And some people might be listening to this and watching this and going, what? You cried at Coffee and a Cake. Yeah, I did. And I know other people that have the same heightened emotional reaction to so many things in their lives for a variety of reasons, who are awesome neuro-kin.
This ties to that whole idea that you were talking before about, the eye contact and stuff, and these myths that exist about autism and neurodivergence, what it really is. And there's that thing that, autistic people don't feel empathy. Actually, it's something I've discussed a few times. To me, I find that actually more autistic people I know really experience overwhelming empathy, and that's why they have to almost shut it off, because it's too protection. And that's that. It's sort of feeling at a level that we can't appreciate. And I, as a neurotypical, can't appreciate.
I said to you before, my partner, I can say to my partner, "Are you okay? We've worked this out now." She doesn't bother lying anymore. She doesn't bother doing the normal neurotypical enhanced response. Yeah, I'm fine. And I had to say to her again and again, "You're all right." She goes, "Yeah, I'm fine." I go, "You're not, because your tonal quality is different. Your chin is sticking out a little bit. You're holding your hand in a certain way, and your eyes are fluttering at this rate." And now she's realised that when I say, "Are you okay?" it's because I've recognised visually she isn't. And so many awesome autistic individuals, the amount of information empathically they get from people around them means that, we have to shut it off. And we may come across as being cold and aloof and non-caring and all the rest of it. It's survival, because we get so much. And again, it's another myth. It's we should do a top 10 myths one, shouldn't we? That's another one we should do.
Oh, that's great.
Top 10 myths. That's a good one, isn't it? We should do that and debunk them. People could write us in. What are the myths they've heard about what it means to be autistic, neurodivergent, and we can debunk those on the air as well.
Put it in the comments. We want to hear what you've got to say about that, and what myths you'd like to see us tackle, and any that you've come across that maybe we don't commonly register, but you've actually uncovered. Put them in the comments. We will discuss them, and you'll get a shout out on the show as well. Tigger, mate, it has been an absolute pleasure, as always. I always learn so much and get so much from myself out of these, so it's so good to do.
The joy I get from this, and your insight, your thoughts, they resonate with me. Your conversations we have, they're just, it is a delight. It is lush, and thank you so much.
And we want to thank you all for joining us too. It is so great that this has really made an impact. We've been getting a lot of views on this, and people are really responding positively. So thank you. Please make sure that you're doing that, chucking it in the comments. We do love it. It means a lot to us to read that stuff. Hit like, hit subscribe, and ring the bell so that you'll always know when these episodes of Across the Neurodivide. There's also loads of the stuff that goes up on this channel. So please do that. It makes a big difference to who gets to see it in the long run.
And I'm going to interrupt here as well and say we both do an awful lot in the neurodivergent PDA world. Hunt me out. With the name Tigger, it's easy to find, but please hunt this young man out as well, because the content, the consistency of the content, the stuff you get out there online, it's gorgeous. So, I love your stuff, man. It is wicked, I tell you.
And right back at you, man. It's been one of the genuine pleasures of doing all this, has been getting to know yourself. Thanks so much for joining us, everyone, and we will see you again on the next episode.
Thanks. Bye.